All right, guys, in today's video, there's a move that you must do with your driver that you don't do with your irons that you might not have ever heard before. In fact, we've never talked about it on this channel, but I think it could be something that's really gonna help you. Let's dive right in. Okay, Steve, so we've got driver versus iron, and there's two things in particular that are different with the driver versus the iron, and two moves during the swing that we need to have in with the driver. We really haven't talked about this yet on the channel, so I'm excited for them to hear it. What are the two main differences and what do we need to do different? And then we'll kind of work through the details.
Well, the one basic is one hits the ground, one doesn't.
One hits the ground, one doesn't. Okay. Right. Iron hits the ground. Driver doesn't. I like that.
From a ball position standpoint, the ball with the driver is more forward. So it's more in front of the midline versus an iron. So the ball will be closer to like your left shoulder, left armpit with the driver, more forward in front of the midline, where the iron is not as far forward.
And because the ball's more forward, what do I need to do?
Because the ball's more forward with the driver versus an iron, your hips would need to move more forward to get to the forward ball position throughout the time and space of the swing.
Okay.
And they also would need to rise and lift up more as you're hitting to help not crash down into the ground because the ball's on a tee.
Okay. So there's two key clear differences here. With the ball position being more forward with the driver, let's say you guys are getting this kind of underneath armpit territory, forward to the midline. Because it's more forward, we're saying I need to have my hips moving more forward just to get to it.
Correct. So there's more hip slide on a driver than an iron.
More hip slide on a driver than an iron. And then because the ball is on a tee, you're saying it up in the air, versus with an iron it's on the ground.
There's more rise or more extension in the body.
More extension. Then that would change.
To shallow out the angle of attack.
Okay. So with a driver, I need more hip slide and more extension.
Correct.
To get to a forward ball position and have the angle of attack more up versus down.
Correct.
Now, if I had like my iron, I would still have some of each of those.
Absolutely.
Just not as much.
Correct.
Okay, so if I took my setup for my iron, right, and that ball position was more kind of middle stance, I'm still having hip slide, I'm still having extension.
Yes.
But because the ball's on the ground and I need the angle of attack to be a bit more down, I just have less of each of those. Kind of a simple version.
Yes.
So when I put the driver in, because that's important. If you guys are listening, leave me a comment down below too. If you've heard that before, I think that's a really simple and interesting way to think about it. Because the ball's more forward, I've got to get to it and I need to hit a little more up. So let's start with the hip slide version, right? So let's say like a general checkpoint or some feels, and let's kind of just jump to the driver. Let's say I've got my driver set up, Steve, and I know sometimes you'll play with even where the hips are at the setup position.
Yep.
And so let's say I had like a 7-iron, right? If I need to have my hips more forward during the downswing, an option is to have them more that way at setup.
Preset, because once again, it just makes it easier to get to the forward ball with the driver. Having the hips more forward, it helps also create a rightward tilt.
If I had my setup with my irons, am I still having my hips forward a little, just less?
Yeah, I would say 2 inches forward with the driver, 1 inch forward with the iron.
And so like, let's say if I just set up stock and my belt buckle was kind of in the middle of my ankles, 7-iron, 1 inch forward, driver I could go 2.
2.
Okay.
With so the lower center, with the hips.
Not the head.
Not the head.
Okay. So with my driver, ball's kind of underneath the armpit. So I could have my hips forward to get to that forward ball position. And you said that also
creates a rightward tilt, creates a side tilt, which makes you swing less across the ball.
Yeah, okay. Especially if I'm going to hit more up, I want to make sure I have my club path more inside.
In out and shallow.
So let's say I have my hips a little forward at setup, and then during the downswing, to start with, maybe I'm trying to get, before we get to the extension, for just the hip slide part, maybe I'm trying to get my hips like forward up over my ankle as a key checkpoint.
Yep.
And one of the guys we can do, I mean, obviously there's a lot of great players, but guys like Scotty Scheffler, we can put on the screen, or Rory McIlroy from Face On. Bryson, they all drive the ball pretty good.
Yeah.
You would see their hips sliding way forward. I mean, Scotty Scheffler from Face On with his driver, his hips slide way forward.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's a good visual to see. So why don't we start with that, Steve? If I want to hit
without the head, just to make that clear, without the head stable, it's the lower center moving forward.
Okay. So I'm not going this way.
Correct.
That'd make me hit too down.
Correct.
Left.
There's not enough rightward tilt.
So it's the hips going forward without the head going with it.
Exactly.
Okay.
You must make sure that's a key part
Yeah,
of it right there.
it's good. So the ball position's forward. To get to the forward ball position, I'm going to have my hips preset a little forward and make them go more forward.
And up.
And up. Okay, and then we'll get to the extension. So just the slide part.
Yep.
Hips forward to start with. Feel the hips sliding forward over the ankle without the head.
Shot.
Kind of right center of the fairway-ish. And so if you look at the Scotty model, or you look at the Rory model, you see my hips moving forward. That makes sense. The ball's more forward. I've got to get to it. And so the hips have to go forward. And simultaneously, as the hips are going forward, like you said, the head stays back, right? To be able to help, you know, we've talked a lot in our videos about the head staying back behind the ball line. And so the more the hips go forward, if you guys are watching, the more the head's back.
Well, the more rightward tilt you have.
More tilt, yeah. So let's do one like that, and then we'll talk about the extension. So the ball's forward, and I'm trying to feel like I'm getting my belt buckle up over my ankle. I'm still turning, I'm still rotating as I'm doing
and when you finish, you can see how your right foot's like fully off the ground and you're just on your toe. You could almost lift your right foot up from right there.
Yeah, okay. So the weight's forward, the hips are forward, my belt buckle's still pointed out towards the target, but that head stays back.
Yes.
Okay, one more like that. Ball under the armpit, preset the hip a little forward, try and get that over the ankle into the follow through. Yeah, another good one there, kind of down the right center of the fairway. So in with the hips sliding, Steve, the extension part. So what are some of the simple feels to start with for the extension? I know like sort of the raising up.
I would say raising the belt. So do your setup.
Yep.
So when you would, if you wanted to just swing through real easy, by the time you'd finish, your hit belt line is above where it started. So
Okay.
the belt's raising up, say two inches.
Farther from the ground.
Yes.
And what's causing that?
The legs are extending. The legs are extending and straightening through the ball. That's allowing the hips to raise up. And also the more that you extend your hips, the more they'll turn as well.
Okay, so as my hips are sliding forward and getting up over my ankle, I'm raising them.
Yep. By the legs straightening.
And the legs straightening. Okay. Getting taller as I work through.
Correct.
And that extension, that taller piece does what? That helps the
club rise, the ascent. It helps the ascent of the club come up from the ground.
Yeah, okay. That helps me hit more up on it.
Yeah, shallows out the angle of attack.
Because we don't want to hit the ground with the driver, you said.
We do not
ideally.
want to hit the ground with the driver.
Let's try one more. And this ball's just teed up because it's matte, guys. You do not need to tee the ball up this high. This is a little ridiculous. You can tee it up normal, but ball's forward. So hips can be preset for. I'm going to slide my hips forward and raise them into the follow through to help hit up. So same thing here, hips sliding forward over the ankle, raising up on the way through. Yeah, that was better there. So again, when we're hitting the iron off the ground, I'm still feeling those same things, just to lesser degrees.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if I had a 7-iron, let's say, and that's more kind of middle of the stance line, I'm still having my hips pushing forward and raising. I just don't need to, not as much.
Correct.
Just less.
Well, you also, remember the object of an iron versus the driver is different. You're trying to hit the ball farther and higher with the driver versus the iron.
Yeah, and that one, obviously, when the ball's in the ground, my angle of attack needs to be a little bit different. Let me try one more with that driver. Yeah, that driver I'm trying to hit as high and as far as possible compared to
the iron.
The iron, a little lower and like a specific
trying to move
distance.
More accurate with a 7 and 8 iron driver, trying to beat the thing down there,
yeah,
make your second shot easier.
Okay, ball's more forward, so I need more hip slide, more extending and raising. Belt buckle's raising, legs are straightening.
While the head's staying back.
Head staying back. Okay, let's do one more with that.
It's the lower center that keeps moving forward and up.
Okay, same things here. Hips are sliding and raising into the follow through. Yeah, there we go. So I like those models, Steve, like the Scotty model, guys that drive the ball really good.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with the, look at Scotty with his driver and how far forward those hips are moving, how much the hips are raising and how the head's staying back over the golf ball line. I like that. I think that's a simple thing for you guys to think about. Maybe you haven't thought about that. Because the ball's forward and teed up, the hips have to slide the most.
And extend the most.
And like we said, with all things, swing related, there's other things going on, you're still rotating, etc. But I like those a lot, Steve. Thank you. If you want to get in with Steve, we'll put his contact down below for in-person lessons. You want to check out cogornogolf.com. We'll also link that. Thank you guys for watching.